Welcome to Reconnecting with Wholeness, the podcast where we dive deep into the messy, beautiful journey of coming home to yourself. I'm your host, Paige, and together we'll gently question everything, bringing you deeper into self-awareness, acceptance, and trust. So take a breath, settle in, and let's begin. Hello and welcome back. Thanks for joining me here today. So today we are going to talk about the subconscious mind. I realized a couple days ago that I have touched on it, but haven't really given it the highlight that I want to. So I'm just going to go with I'm going to keep things simple. I'm going to go with our conscious mind and our subconscious mind. And our conscious mind is really like our awareness. And our subconscious is this part of our mind that operates outside of our awareness. It is responsible for things like feelings, thoughts, behaviors. This would be, I know it's easy to say like, anything that we don't consciously do, but I would even go kind of a step beyond that and say, like, if you find that you are self-sabotaging, right? If you're like, oh, I really want more money in my life, and then every time you get more money, you just go out and spend it. Or I really want love in my life, and then you only date people who are unavailable, or then you meet somebody but always push them away, right? That might be like some sort of a subconscious belief that is creating that behavior of pushing somebody or something away, even though you consciously say that you want it in your life. These aren't directly perceived. So it's not, I'm dating this guy and they have a whole bunch of red flags, and so we're going to break up with him, right? This is maybe the person who always dates people and finds like these really small reasons to break up with them, right? That might be a person who has some sort of subconscious fear that's creating this behavior of not being able to commit or attach. And so they break up over something that seems very small. This is where a lot of our emotions and memories are stored. The subconscious is said to be formed 0 to 7 years. So a lot of subconscious work it takes you back to early childhood and formative years. I want to make a very clear distinction that subconscious work and like inner child healing work are different. Subconscious work, you are going back to a memory for the purpose of kind of redefining it or rewriting it for allowing a different narrative to play out, versus inner child healing work, like we're going back to a moment in time to give you the thing that you needed. So inner child work can have it can have a lasting effect, but it's not necessarily rewriting the subconscious either. I hope that makes sense. The best way that I can explain this is like subconscious work would be, okay, I have this, I'm really struggling to put myself out there, and so I do a session with somebody and my subconscious takes me back to a memory that I did put myself out there and maybe was laughed at. And so it kind of creates this, here's the root, so to speak, or at least maybe one of the roots of that fear of rejection, versus inner child healing work is more of, okay, we're going back to a point in time that on some conscious awareness level hurt you, and we're going to go back and we're going to give you whatever you needed in that time, right? And so maybe you were really afraid, and so we're going to bring peace and assurance into this moment, so that way that doesn't feel like something you have to continuously carry forward. So I hope that that distinction is at least clear enough. But I do think it's worth making note that there is a distinction, because not all inner child work is going to rewrite subconscious beliefs or patterning. And similarly, like, not all subconscious work is going to rewrite those very impactful stories. In fact, I met this woman a few years ago online, and I've kind of been in her world ever since. Her name is Gabby Abrams, and she, I don't know if she still does, because she recently kind of retired her old coaching business and created a new business. But when I met her and got into her world, she advertised herself as a subconscious marketing coach for women entrepreneurs. And she uses a method called RTT. It's rapid transformational therapy. And she talked about how in a lot of her RTT sessions, what she found very interesting after doing a lot of these is that it's not the moments that you think about that come up in RTT sessions. It's not, my parent left at this age. It's not to say that it can't be, right? But it's not typically some of those like big T traumas. It's actually these like small moments of, I then brought back to this time that I drew something that I was really proud of, and my parents threw it away. And that our subconscious still stores all of those, right? It stores all of these like little moments where maybe we wanted to be celebrated, or maybe we wanted to be reassured, and we didn't get that from our caretakers, right? Whether that's parents or other family or friends or teachers. I'm not saying either that like those little moments have to be addressed, but for example, like if I'm going to see somebody for inner child healing work, that's usually not the thing that somebody's going to come to me for, is for assurance around a drawing that they did that their parents threw away. So I'm not negating the level that holds in our subconscious mind. I am, again, just like making a difference between like our subconscious and rewiring those thoughts to like inner child healing work. So our subconscious isn't directly perceived. And I know I was just kind of saying this. So the question becomes, right, like, how do we handle the subconscious? If this is the part that runs the majority of our life, then how do we change it? How do we upgrade it? All of those questions start to come into play, right? And there are some people who use like affirmations as a way of using our consciousness and the things that we say consciously to attempt to upgrade our subconscious. And I don't necessarily think that there's anything wrong with that. Just for me, that doesn't feel like the most effective way to do it. And so I am one who would much rather work with like accessing my subconscious mind, rewriting those, and then maybe using affirmations as a integration or an implementation of that new belief that I just put into the subconscious. Yeah. So how do we then potentially access the subconscious mind, right? Like that kind of becomes the next question. And I think I was debating if I wanted to go here, but I think I have to. The biggest thing with our mind in general, and I'm gonna switch out from mind to brain here, is that we have what are the brain waves that we're operating at during that time period, which is our delta and theta brainwave states. So we're going to talk a little bit about the brainwaves. What do they do? What are they responsible for? So delta we experience from 0 to 2. That doesn't mean that we don't experience it later in life. It's just that our how we interact with it changes, right? So that is the dominant rhythm in infants. And I've had actually like mixed reviews when I've gone to search this as to whether it's infants to 1 or infants to 2. But this is like the predominant brainwave that they're experiencing, whereas we as adults then experience it in like deep sleep. And also some abnormal processes, but I'm not really going to talk about that because I'm not a neuroscientist and I don't think that I am qualified to talk about like how it works with ADD and things like that. But it is really this like deep, dreamless trance state. Yeah, I think that's all I want to say for now on that. Theta is the next brainwave frequency that we move to. And this is classified as slow, but it's also in connection with creativity, intuition, daydreaming, fantasizing. This is really where it kind of like stores our memories, emotions, and sensations. So this is where, not that you have to get back to theta, but I would say that for the most part, right, if you're looking to rewrite some of your subconscious memories, beliefs, fears, etc., like this is really where most of that work is going to happen. Is by accessing this like theta wave. So these are strong during internal focus, meditation, prayer. I would also say like hypnosis. It reflects the state between wakefulness and sleep and relates to the subconscious. So there's also this bit of, in the spiritual world, it's talked about as like a liminal state. But it's really just kind of like this state between like sleeping and wakeful, just exactly what they're talking about. But if you ever have like experienced that, even if you're like, oh, like I know that I'm like not really awake, but I'm like not really asleep either, that's probably going to be on that like theta brainwave. This is not typically experienced awake in adults, but it is seen normal as awake for children up to 13 years old. And again, it's normal during sleep. So again, theta is that like secondary, most of our subconscious years that are formed, we are primarily operating, or at least it's a normal operating wave during our wakeful hours, where that like then begins to shift as we actually move into adulthood. Yeah, fantasy imagery, all of those types of things. Then we move into alpha waves, and alpha waves are really more of that like mental resourcefulness. So it's more of an awake state. This you can move quickly and efficiently to accomplish tasks. This is the major rhythm that's seen in this page that I'm referencing says normal relaxed adults. I'm not entirely sure what normal references, but I do know that in some of the earlier ones it was talking about ADD and ADHD. It is present for most of life. So this is where our delta and theta waves as adults we primarily access in sleepful hours. Alpha waves are a bit different in that, where they become one of our predominant wakeful hours, or wakeful brainwaves is what I was trying to say. this is probably, I mean, according to this site that I'm on, it says it's the one of the most important frequencies to learn and to use information's taught in the classroom and on the job. This can be feelings of like relaxed, also not drowsy though, tranquil, healing. It also gives a note of inner awareness of self, mind, body integration, balance, centering. So then we move into our beta brainwave, and this is considered fast activity. This is the state that most of the brain is in when we have our eyes open, we're listening, thinking, problem solving, judgment, decision making, processing information. This is where we spend a lot of our time. It does have a relatively large range, and so the professionals who know more than I do have it categorized as like low, mid, and high. And that's really just like, where is it in the brain? What does it feel like? So relaxed yet focused, integrated, thinking, aware of self versus like alertness, or being very, very focused. And then we have our last brainwave, which is gamma. And this is activated when the brain needs to simultaneously process information from different areas. Again, it's like very focused. It's a good memory associator. So again, this gamma is really for like simultaneously processing information. It's associated with a good memory and being very focused. Mental activity, math, planning, those are the type of functions that would activate the gamma waves. So I say that because as an adult, right, like we go ideally, right, between alpha, beta, and gamma waves. And really what we're looking at is, in order to access the subconscious, accessing more of those theta and delta waves. So, of course, like the question becomes like, well, Paige, how do we do that? So first I would like to point out that what I find really interesting is that our brainwaves are, even the fast ones in a lot of, I'm going to just talk from a sound healer's perspective, they're pretty low. So, I mean, gamma waves are the highest and they're at like 40 hertz. Versus delta, which is like anything under 4 hertz. Why do I say that? Because I'm going to say that if you are like, you have an active mind, there's nothing wrong with an active mind, right? But if you feel like you're like constantly thinking and all of that kind of stuff, like slow down, right? Slowing down, and not that you have, I mean, there are machines that like give an idea of what's happening with our brainwaves, but as a normal person who isn't going to wear those types of things every day or walk around being monitored, right? We don't necessarily know what brave wavelengths we're operating at, right? So my first thing would be, when was the last time that you were creative? When was the last time you were in a flow state? And this kind of leads me into my like very first, honestly, recommendation for accessing some of those like subconscious thoughts, which is like free journaling. And I actually had this experience. I earlier this year did a book called Calling in the One by Catherine Woodward Thomas, and one of the activities and exercises that she had mentioned was that she had gone through this like 30-day period where she wrote 5 pages of what she was thankful for every morning, and how it caused her to like really stretch what her what her perspective of gratitude was, and how could she be thankful, because she was filling up 5 pages. And so I went through and filled up my 5 pages, and in one particular part, like, I mean, I definitely had to like pause and come back to it, but it had opened up that like flow state of like, I just started to write and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is a huge like subconscious belief that I have, right? So I'm not saying that you have to journal 5 pages, but I am saying that if you write and can get into a flow state, that's a good way of accessing, yes, our alpha brainwave, but also more than that, right? Like part of that subconscious, it kind of at least opens up the doorway a little bit. A lot of what I saw and loosely agree with was like meditation. I think meditation is good. I would say that the like drawback to meditation is that people can feel like there's a lot of rights or wrongs about it. And so maybe you sit for 5 minutes and you just like hear chatter in your brain, right? Like, well, that's not switching wavelengths, which you probably already know, but also that doesn't mean that it's not worth attempting to like utilize that. I do believe that meditation is a like learned skill set. It's something that the more that we do it, the better that we get at it and the easier that it becomes. I started off meditation doing guided meditations because I felt like it was easier to clear my mind to something that somebody else was saying, and I could just kind of follow along, and at least it stopped some of those like day-to-day thoughts of what's happening from coming back up. Various forms of visualization in that sense, whether it's a visualization that you do, whether it's a guided meditation that somebody else has, whether it's shamanic journeying, whether it's hypnosis, all of those can help. The other thing that can help switch into altered states of consciousness is sound healing. So whether that's actually like you go to a sound bath, I offer those, by the way, or whether that is you listen to something on Spotify, whatever your method is, sound healing can definitely help with that. The other alternative, and I don't necessarily advocate for this, but it does alter states of consciousness, is various forms of plant medicine. So there is also that. When I say altered states of consciousness, just because I want this to be clear too, like we are talking about exactly this, like the switching brain wavelengths. I'm not entirely sure if there's any like science behind breath work switching altered states of consciousness, but I believe that breath work does the same thing because it's getting you like more into your body. It is clearing your mind. You are focused on the breath. There are many different types of breath work out there. And it does activate like the parasympathetic nervous system, which we'll get into another day. So again, to kind of like recap, make it short and simple, at least to some degree, right? Like our subconscious is the thing that runs the show, and it is primarily formed from 0 to 7, and especially I think as a result, it's important for us to go back and to look at our subconscious and to access it in some way, whatever it is that's best for you. Oh, the other thing I was going to say too, I think I had mentioned this before in one of our earlier podcast episodes, but honestly, tapping, I really like that too. EFT, emotional freedom technique, tapping, it's all kind of the same. I mean, it is all the same, it's just different names. But tapping I really like because you can just kind of start talking and rambling, and I think that some really profound things can come out when you allow that. It's another way of kind of getting into that flow state. Anyway, depending especially on like how old you are, right? Think about like what was happening in the world when you were in that age range of even say like 0 to 10, right? Like what was happening? Where was the world? What were those beliefs? And do those still feel like they fit for you? One thing that I would encourage you to do is if there's an area where you feel like, oh, I like really want this thing. I really want to lose weight, to have a happy relationship, to, I mean, fill in the blank, right? And yet you make attempts at doing that thing, but aren't successful, right? Really like just kind of not sitting with it in the sense that you are over analyzing, right? But just kind of allowing yourself to keep this and say, you know what, maybe something will be revealed to me, and maybe you do some tapping on that. Maybe you do some journaling on that. Maybe you do a guided meditation and kind of hold this as a intention of something that you're hoping gets more revealed to you, right? And allowing yourself to see over the next week, 2 weeks, however long, if there's something else that comes up that you hadn't really thought about before. Yeah. And then of course, as always, right? Like I said, some of those ways of accessing, some of these altered states or altered brainwaves, right? These brainwaves that naturally occur, but we don't always do on a day-to-day basis, especially through a wakeful state, right? Are again, like that sound healing, meditation, journeying, whether or not you feel like you need somebody to hold that space for you. I will say, like, if you're a person who's like, oh, I like kind of want to try this, but I don't want to like go and pay money, like there are tons of resources on YouTube. There are tons of people who do tapping. There are tons of people who do even just like shamanic. I wouldn't suggest shamanic journeying if you've never like done one before, but even just like listening to music and allowing your brain to go wherever it decides to go. And if you want to start small, like think about daydreaming, like just start with you being able to imagine or visualize or create or fantasize, and see how just moving more into that alpha brainwave feels for you. I hope that this episode was one that made sense and didn't get too convoluted, because I know that when we I think that science is a fascinating part of what I do, and at the same time I recognize that it can be, in the words of my daughter, tricky to talk about how science actually integrates for some of these things, right? We're not actively taught about what brainwaves we operate on or what they mean. And so when we start talking about those things, then in relation to subconscious, and then again in relation to like how can we activate those, I think it can be very layered. So by all means, if you feel like this went over your head and need to listen to it again, listen to it again. If you're like, hey Paige, I think that there are some things that I missed or I want you to talk deeper about, by all means shoot me an email, comment, whatever, and I will see that, and I will go deeper into whatever it is that you would like. I hope you all have a blessed day, and for any of you moms who are out there, happy Mother's Day, and I will see you all next week. Thanks for joining me today on Reconnecting with Wholeness. I invite you to take what resonated and explore how it shows up in your own life. Keep keep in mind, even the smallest shifts can spark transformation. If today's episode felt valuable for you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share it, leave a review, or connect with me on social media. Until next time, keep exploring, keep feeling, and keep reconnecting with the wholeness that's already within you. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.